Hello, welcome to the Save the Frogs grants discussion, January 25th, 2021. I am Save the Frogs founder, Dr. Kerry Kriger, and I am joined here by Nurul Islam, six-time Save the Frogs grant winner. He is in Bangladesh. We also have Save the Frogs board member Mike Horton, who knows a lot about grant writing. And we got Margot Fass on the line in New York, and lots of other Save the Frog supporters. Everyone out there, feel free to chat in where in the world you are. So the goal today, we're going to be talking about raising money in general for your environmental cause, and specifically we're going to be talking about Save the Frogs grant opportunities. Save the Frogs grants applications open up February 1st and go through March 1st, and we'll get into the details, and I'll give you some advice on how to submit a grant application that has a high chance of success. All right, so thanks everyone for being here. We got Lana from the UK, Sarah in Illinois, Emily in Brooklyn, Dunham, Save the Frogs event organizer in South India, and we've got Krishna in India as well. I believe Sophia in Argentina, Julian in the UK. All right, so thanks everyone for being here. Jeannie in Northern Michigan. Okay, so since we don't have any questions right now, let me go ahead and get started and give you a run through on Save the Frogs grants and what they're all about and what the application process looks like. I'm going to share my screen. All right, here we go. So I'm at savethefrogs.com/grants. Hopefully you can remember that. If not, there's a search bar at the top right of the site. Type in grants, or all the way at the bottom of the site, if you go down to the footer, opportunities, grants, and that'll get you there. So let's just go through these. There's 4 pages I want to show you. The first is savethefrogs.com/grants. It just has a overview. All right, so first off, thanks to all of our donors who make these grants possible. $101,398 dispersed by Save the Frogs to amphibian conservationists in 16 countries since 2009. Save the Frogs grants fall into 3 categories. I'm going to be talking about each of these categories. Each category has its own page and its own application. Amphibian conservation grants, Save the Frogs Day grants, and travel grants. All right, so travel grant, if you need to travel, say, to a conference or to a field site to do some amphibian conservation activities, that's what you would probably apply for. Save the Frogs Day grants for organizers of Save the Frogs Day events. And amphibian conservation grants will say for everything else that has to do with protecting amphibians and educating the public about amphibians. All right. So probably all of you are on this notification list, so I'm not certain that's true, but I can add anyone who registered for this grants discussion. I'll go ahead and add you automatically to the notifications list. But if you know someone interested in Save the Frogs grants, I'd suggest have them come to this page and add their name there so that they are certain to hear about any Save the Frogs grant announcements. Why do we give grants? Save the Frogs is not a foundation. We're a public charity. Our primary goal is to be implementing amphibian conservation projects, but we know that we can get more done if we have talented people in the USA and around the world doing good things for the environment. So we give out grants to help accomplish our mission, which is to protect amphibian populations and to promote a society that respects and appreciates nature and wildlife. So we're hoping that our grantees can help us achieve our mission. What do we fund? All right, number one, the project must provide a clear benefit to amphibian populations. So we're not going to fund anything that has nothing to do with amphibians. All right, a focus on promoting a society that respects and appreciates nature and wildlife. That's part of our mission. Okay, so we do fund environmental education related to amphibians, environmental journalism, graphic design, videos, art, books, podcasts, music, and other communication media that raises awareness of amphibian issues. Scientific research that has a clear conservation benefit. Note that it must have a clear conservation benefit. Okay, if it's for pure theoretical knowledge or just curiosity that will not be applied to helping amphibians survive, then it's probably not going to be awarded. Habitat protection, creation, and restoration. So if you want to build a wetland, reforest habitat, protect habitat through legislative means, that's all good. Policy, campaigning, legislative, and enforcement efforts, as long as they're related to amphibians. All right, projects by nonprofit organizations based anywhere on the planet. Projects by individuals only if they're USA citizens. That means if you're a USA citizen, you do not need to be affiliated with a nonprofit organization to win a grant from us. But if you're outside the USA, for us to send money outside the USA, we can only send money to a registered nonprofit organization. That may be your university. Maybe if you're not directly affiliated with a nonprofit, then you need to contact one, team up with them, and make sure that they can be the recipients of the funding. All right, so for the travel grants, conference travel, if you will be presenting or running an informational table or other type of event. Okay, so if it's just to go to a conference and attend the conference and just listen, then you're probably not going to get funded. All right. Save the Frogs Day events and projects aimed at raising funds for Save the Frogs. So maybe your whole project is to fundraise for Save the Frogs, and that could be funded. What we do not fund: projects that have no relation to amphibians, scientific research that does not have a clear conservation benefit, as I said before. And also, as I said before, we're not going to fund you as an individual if you're outside the USA. So if you're outside the USA, you must be affiliated with a nonprofit organization. We're not going to fund any projects that harm individual amphibians or amphibian populations. So if you're doing scientific research and you need to harm amphibians, or if you're, say, putting pit tags in amphibians, then maybe that would be possible, but that's, going to have less likelihood because it is going to inflict some harm on the individual amphibian. Amphibian commerce, trade, transport, captive raising, or aquaculture. So if you're thinking that you're going to start farming bullfrogs to reduce the need for people to eat wild-caught frogs, we're probably not going to, I'll say we're not going to fund that. So anything that has to do with the buying and selling of amphibians, we're not going to fund. All right, so the rest of this page just has a list of the grants we've awarded by year and the countries they've gone to. We don't have a complete list, or we don't have a publicly available list of every awardee with the name of their project, though I'll say a lot of funders do have those, and those are good things for a potential grantee to look at. So if a site you go to that you're thinking of applying for money from has a list of who's been awarded and what their project was, it's good to look at that list to see what types of projects are regular winners of money from that organization. Okay. And as I'm talking about any of these things, if you have questions, go ahead and send them in, and I'll go ahead and look what's here. All right, welcome Daniel and Amir from the UK. Okay, so Margot asks, what are the largest funds available outside of Save the Frogs to cover ambitious plans? Some of you are probably wondering what are the largest grants that we at Save the Frogs would give as well. For Margot's question, what are the largest funds outside of Save the Frogs? I'd say it's into the millions of dollars, but I would not recommend applying for millions of dollars unless you know the funder personally And unless you have a demonstrated um, history of being able to administer and to handle large grants. So if they see your annual revenues or expenses are $100,000 a year, they're probably not going to give you $1 million. I'd say as a rough guide, because a lot of funders will ask, for your financial statements. I'd say usually you're not going to get a grant for more than 50% of your normal annual budget because they're going to think you probably don't have the infrastructure to handle such a thing. But yeah, I mean, as a general statement, there's grant levels, funding amounts range from a few $100s up to millions of dollars. It all just depends. A lot of the government grants, EPA grants, $100,000. NIH, NSF grants, $1 million. Small family foundations, maybe around $1,000, a few $1,000s. So it all just depends. As far as Save the Frogs grants, let's go into those. So let's start out with the amphibian conservation grants. I'm just going to click this button. It takes me to savethefrogs.com/grants-amphibian-conservation. And here we are. Okay, so we give these out to dedicated groups and individuals who wish to conduct important amphibian conservation activities and seek financial assistance. Okay, funding amount. Save the Frogs Amphibian Conservation Awards are usually for $2,000 or less. We do occasionally give out larger awards if the project is innovative and justified. I'll also add on to that for us to go over the amounts stated here, like these are just rough guidelines. The higher the amount of money that you seek, the more history with Save the Frogs we probably want to see, because for us to give out money, we're taking a risk that you're going to get the job done. So if you've been a part of the Save the Frogs community for a long time, then we have more knowledge of your capabilities. So I'd say if it's your first time ever applying for a Save the Frogs grant, probably stay within the limits that we mentioned. All right, timeline. We accept these grants. We accept your application. We'll review your application once per year. Okay, so we accept applications starting February 1st, and they'll go through March 1st, 11:59 p.m. Los Angeles time. That means this coming month is the time for you to apply. If we receive it after that cutoff, it's not going to get reviewed for another year. All right, decisions will be announced March 31st and funds sent out April 10th. That means your project needs to start no earlier than, say, April 15th. So when you're talking about the timeline of your project, don't apply for funds if you need the funds before April 15th. And then you must submit a progress report by October 1st if you have not yet submitted a final report. That means if you finish your project before then, fine, we don't need a progress report, but we do need a final report. So in the application, we're going to make sure that you're going to be submitting a final report. Why do we want a final report? What does Save the Frogs have to gain by giving out funds that we could use for other purposes? Aside from the fact that you will hopefully be helping us accomplish our mission, we want to inform our supporters and potential donors of your activities and just other conservationists so that they can be inspired by what you've done. That's why we need a final report. Your final report is going to help us put information about your project online on our website and on social media so that lots of people know what you did and that Save the Frogs had a part in the success of that project. All right, grant writing tip number 1. Always, if possible, submit your grant proposals a week or two prior to the deadline. This helps ensure you will not be rushed and that grantors see your application first, fall in love with it, and want it to win. So this goes for any time you're applying for a grant, try to get it in early and you will benefit from that. You won't be in a rush, and the grant givers will know you get stuff done on time, you're not a last minute kind of person, and maybe they'll even really like your project and already be thinking this is definitely a winner, and they're going to have that in mind before they see other people's applications. Okay, so I already discussed what we do and do not fund. Eligibility. All right, so for this grant, no historical involvement with Save the Frogs is required to apply. So anyone can apply regardless of whether you've had anything to do with Save the Frogs before. But as I said, it certainly helps for you to be a known entity. All right, I discussed within and outside the USA. In the USA, you can be an individual or a nonprofit organization or even a for-profit organization, I guess. Outside the USA, you must be affiliated with a nonprofit organization. Okay, with all of our grants, you have to be a member of Save the Frogs to apply. Now, what's it take to become a member? You could go to the Save the Frogs membership page, savethefrogs.com/membership, and you can set up a recurring donation of $10 a month or $100 a year to become a member. Or if you cannot afford that or simply don't want to do that, you could apply for a Save the Frogs scholarship, of which everyone who's applied for a scholarship and been approved in the past, I'm going to restart your membership to go through June 30th. So for the first half of this year, within a few days, I'm going to reactivate all the memberships. If you've never applied for a scholarship, you can just go to the savethefrogs.com/scholarships, apply for a scholarship. That gets you a membership, okay, at no cost. Why do we want you to be a member? Because we want our membership to grow, and you as a member will gain access to Save the Frogs Academy courses, among other things, and we want you to be as educated an amphibian conservationist as possible. All right, grant writing tip number 2, always ensure you meet all eligibility requirements prior to applying. So most grantors' web pages will have full details of eligibility. If you ever need to, you can contact the grantor with a short, well thought out question. All right, so when you're ready to apply, here's the application. Dates are from February 1st to March 1st, so probably wait until February 1st, but it'll come through even if you submit it right now. Let's go ahead and look what's on this application. First name, last name, email, your country. Are you a Save the Frogs member? Okay, if you're unsure, then the answer is likely no, in which case you should become a member prior to completing the form. If you truly don't know, let me know. But again, if you're a scholarship recipient or applicant, wait for my email in a few days and I will be informing you that you're a member for 6 more months. Okay, what type of grant are you seeking? Go ahead and choose Amphibian Conservation Grant. The name of your organization, mailing address of your organization, info about your organization in one paragraph. So that means keep it concise. Tell us something about your organization's history, URL, website of your organization. What's your involvement in history with Save the Frogs? If you just heard about us the other day, fine, say that. If you've been a volunteer for years, go ahead and say that. If you've taken part in any of our events or activities, mention what they are. Now, your proposed activities, 400 words maximum. All right, so that's about a page. Tell us what you're going to do. Don't leave us guessing what you're going to do. Now, you only have 400 words, so it doesn't have to be in thorough detail, but we don't want to have to guess what you're going to do, and no funder wants to have to guess what you're going to do. So be clear. Always, as with writing of just about any kind, get the most important stuff out first, all right? Maybe sum up the whole thing in the first sentence or two. and then break it down, but even starting with the most important parts of that project. Number of volunteers expected. Maybe it's just you. Maybe you're going to have 20 people helping out. Just put that estimated number in there. Number of participants. So that's different. Your volunteers are helping you implement the project. Participants are people who are going to be attending whatever you do. Maybe that's 0, because who knows, maybe you're out doing research with 1 volunteer and it's just the 2 of you. Okay, but maybe you're holding an event and expect 50 people there. Put that number in there. Start and end date of your project. The amount you're requesting. Okay, so as it said before, we suggest no higher than $2,000. If you really think you want to apply for more than $2,000, probably good to contact us first, or just keep it within the limits. Budget details. How exactly, that's the key word, how exactly will you spend the award money if you receive it? The more detail, the better, but please be concise. Okay, recurring theme, be concise. Don't ramble on, get to the point, because it takes us time to read through these applications. We want you to be concise, but we still need to know exactly what you're doing. And this is key for any grant you ever apply for. Don't ever leave the reviewer of the application guessing on what you mean. So if you say travel expenses, $300, that's not too detailed. I don't know what that means. You gonna get on a bus? Or are you gonna pay for gas? Is that your, who knows what? That's just a random example. If you say I need lab supplies, $300, give it a little bit more detail so that the funder knows you've actually thought out what the money is going for, and it's not just a wild guess. Like I need 500 for this, and 200 for that, and 600 for this. Go into some detail, and I'll also give you a little tip. Don't use rounded off numbers like 500. 500 sounds like you guessed it. $493.21 sounds that you did a thorough estimate. Maybe not down to the cent, but that number sounds like a number that you probably thought of from some actual research, versus just $500 sounds like you just kind of pulled it out of your head as an estimate. Do you agree to submit a final report? That answer must be yes, or we're not going to give you money. Final report submission date. You tell us, when should we expect your final report? When are you going to submit your final report? You, as a person filling out this application, are taking the responsibility to get the project done. If something happens and you can't get the project done, let us know. But we're assuming you're going to get it done and that you are going to submit that final report. Anything else you'd like us to know, feel free to add in anything there that you think we should know that'll assist your application. And then attachments. If you want to upload a spreadsheet for a budget, a PDF of something, photos of you in action, or anything like that, you can attach files right there. So, budget spreadsheet. Do you need a spreadsheet? Do you need some pre-made budget template? No, but you should put some time into your budget and make sure that if you paste it in here, it's easy to read. If it's a spreadsheet, then it's got all the details. However you want to do it is up to you. And then submit. Okay? That's all there is to it for that one. Let's go back to the other two, and it shouldn't take us very long to get through those. And again, if you have questions, chat them in. So let's go on to Save the Frogs Day grant. Save the Frogs Day, world's largest day of amphibian education and conservation action, taking place the last Saturday of April every year. 13th annual Save the Frogs Day coming up April 24th of this year. We are going to hold another World Summit online, and we'll have a lot of different presentations going on Friday and Saturday. And this year, we're going to need to know, if you apply for a Save the Frogs Day grant, we're going to need you to be really clear on what are the issues related to COVID, travel restrictions, gathering restrictions. So if you say you're going to hold an event we need to know, are you truly going to be able to hold an event? Is that actually a good idea to hold an event? And maybe it is in various parts of the world. In the USA, probably not going to happen. So you may want to just hold off on a Save the Frogs Day grant for next year and just plan on attending the Save the Frogs World Summit, which you can attend anyway, and promoting that to your people. Okay, so Save the Frogs Day grants generally average around $300. If you have an exceptional event planned or a series of events, that means you're organizing multiple events, then you can apply for up to $750. And actually, I say here, if you are coordinating a lot of different groups, such as Nurul has done in Bangladesh, coordinating with different university groups and distributing money for their Save the Frogs Day events, then you can apply for more. But first, contact us. All right, so again, timeline for grants, February 1st to March 1st. Decisions made by March 31st. Funds dispersed by April 10th. And we will expect a final report by May 15th because Save the Frogs Day is the last Saturday in April. So that'll give you a couple weeks to prepare your report and send it in. Okay, so here our eligibility is different. We want to see that you have Save the Frogs Day historical involvement. That means, have you or your organization held a Save the Frogs Day event in the past and reported on it? If it's your very first Save the Frogs Day event, you are not eligible. So we still encourage you to hold an event. Doesn't have to be a high cost event, but we want to see that you can hold an event, that you are dedicated enough to just go out there and do it, and that you actually did it and it was successful. Okay, the other eligibility requirements are the same. And let's see what we ask for that's any different in this application for Save the Frogs Day awards. All right, so everything there is the same. My only suggestion is that for the Save the Frogs Day grants, if you're applying, make sure you tell us about go into a little depth about what you did on past Save the Frogs Day events. What year they were held, how many people show up, what happened, what you did on those events. Okay, and then travel grants. Save the Frogs travel grants. Again, for 2021, if you are applying for one of these, you're going to have to make sure we know that you're not going to be having COVID-related travel restrictions negatively impacting your ability to travel. All right, Save the Frogs travel grants generally average about $400. You can request up to $750 to get to professional conferences, educational trainings, field sites. Timeline. Grant applications can be submitted year-round. Decisions will be announced within 28 days of application submission. If you don't hear from us within 28 days, then definitely contact us. Funds will be dispersed within 14 days of successful decision, and then final report should be submitted to us by you within 14 days of completing your travel. All right, so I'm assuming this should be the same, pretty much the same application. And that concludes my discussion on Save the Frogs grants. So remember, savethefrogs.com/grants has all this info. Just click one of these to get to the grant you care about. I'm going to stop my screen share. All right, so thanks everyone for listening through that, and I hope that helps you with your success. Let me see what kind of questions have come in. So Margot, $20,000 grants, who gives them? I mean, there's tons of grantors, so this gets into a question which we should discuss is how do you find grants aside from Save the Frogs grants? Who else gives grants and how do you find them? So let me discuss that momentarily. Can an organization apply for more than one type of grant? Yeah, I think you could apply for all three. Do you recommend that organizations choose Save the Frogs 8 or the conservation grants? Yeah, so maybe I should clarify on, or I should clarify on the page. You can apply for more than one of these grants. If you're applying for Save the Frogs Day funds, then you should apply through the Save the Frogs Day grant application. If you're applying for travel funds, apply through travel. For anything else, then you should use the amphibian conservation grant. All right, Sarah, glad you liked that. Now, shall we apply for both? I don't think you should apply for multiple grants unless you have multiple projects in mind. I'd be just as happy as you if you won award money from another organization. So don't only apply, or I'll say this: your chances of winning a Save any grant you ever apply for, you've got less than 50% chance of winning. Probably way less than that. That's fine. And Nurul out here can probably tell you how many grants he's applied for and how many he's won, because I think he keeps good track of it. And I'll tell you, it's not a very high percentage, and he's a good grant writer, but he has won a lot of grants. So what's that mean? That means apply for a lot of grants. Eventually, if you are a good writer and you follow these tips that I've given you, make sure you have someone who speaks proper English, native English speaker, to review your application. If your English is not perfect, then get it reviewed and make sure that your final deliverable as an application is with good grammar, spelling is correct, and all that. So I'll say, submit your application well thought out. If you submit enough, you're going to win one eventually. So what are you going to do? Is it going to be a complete waste of time to apply if you think, oh, I only have a 20% chance of winning or whatever it is? No, because at least two things. In filling out any grant application, you are probably being forced to more thoroughly think through your project. So that's going to help your project succeed whether or not you get these funds. You're going to have a better project. You're going to have all that info written out that you can add to your social media site or your own website about the things that you do. And then also, you've now prepared a grant application. How much different is another funder's application going to be from ours? It may be less thorough, it may be more thorough, but chances are whatever you've written out for this application, you can recycle, and the next application that you submit is going to be less time consuming for you. So yeah, so Nurul says he's won 8 out of 67 grants, okay? So, all right, 11, 12% success rate, but I'm guessing that the more he does, the higher the chance of success becomes, and he's won 8 grants. That's good. So I don't know if that only includes Save the Frogs, because I'm guessing you've won more than 2 grants from other organizations, because he's won 6 of them from Save the Frogs. So it may even be higher than that. But whatever it is, what's mine? I should have started tracking from the very start very thoroughly. I haven't, but I do recommend all of you, I'd say, make a spreadsheet, except that I don't like spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are for mathematical formulations. Use a database. I don't like most databases because they're too hard to understand. I do like Airtable because it's a mix of a spreadsheet and a database that normal people can use. So I'll say use an Airtable, airtable.com. It's free, okay? And every time you apply for a grant, make a row, the name of the funder, the date you applied, how much you applied for, upload the attachment of your PDF summary, put your final report, keep track of, did you submit your final report? When's the final report due? You don't want to be late, okay? So keep track of it. Did you succeed? How much money did you get? And then after you've applied for 67 grants, you'll be able to say, hey, I applied for 67. Here's who they were from. Oh, I forgot about that organization. They said I should contact them in a year. So keep good track of all your grant applications you apply for. And Nurul was talking amphibian related, so he's probably applied for more, but we get the point. You're not going to win every grant. I sure haven't, but eventually you're going to get a good success letter. Congratulations, we're awarding you maybe thousands of dollars. And what's another benefit of that, aside from helping you implement your project? Add that to your resume. Definitely keep track of the ones you've won, and every time you win one, add it to your resume. CV. Okay, so before I get to Margot's question about where to look for grants, maybe I'm going to give Nurul and Mike the opportunity. You don't have to speak right here, but since I've been talking for a long time, if you have anything to say, now would be a good time.
Yeah, I'd like to say just a couple things. One of the biggest mistakes I see, I've done both applying for grants and I've reviewed grants and ranked them and awarded them. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is not following the instructions, right? The request for proposals will put out there exactly what they are looking for. And what I see people doing a lot of times is taking a project that they want to do and using that to apply for a grant where they don't really consider what the grantors are looking for. And they just assume, well, you know, I have a good conservation project. I'd like to just put that forward. And when you apply for a grant, usually there are evaluation criteria listed right there. You need to go through and you need to address each one of those things. If they say they're looking for something that has an education component, don't put forward a proposal that doesn't at least have something that you can say is education related, something like that. You know, if you look at it, usually evaluators have a ranking system and a scoring system, and you will get X number of points for each thing that you meet. Well, you should be able to see how well you're going to do. You should be able to read through and look at your proposal. And if it is not clear that you're meeting a point, then make it clear. In fact, if you have sort of a generic project write-up that you've been trying to shop around for a while, and you're going to use this to apply for different grants, then add something at the end that has a list of each of the points they're looking for and how you meet that, something like that. That's the biggest thing. Don't overpromise. You know, make sure that whatever you say you can do, you can actually do, so you don't end up on the financial hook yourself. And personal communication can be really valuable. If you have a reason to contact them, asking questions, try and strike up a personal relationship with them in any way. You know, ask them if you can call back again, talk about your organization, what you're trying to do. You know, a lot of these granting organizations are just deluged with applications, and you sit there and you score them, you review them, and you score them one after another, and anything you can do to stand out so that they look at yours and say, oh yeah, I remember that person, that guy, that was pretty interesting thing they were talking about, you know, things like that. So that, and then just don't assume that everything you see as being self-evident is going to be self-evident to the reviewer. Make sure you just spell it out, make it perfectly clear. That's all I got.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. That's a very clear and straightforward guideline. And so far in my experience, what I learned from applying different grants, one of the big mistake I used to do in my early stage, that putting a lot of activities plan, which is not achievable with this amount of money that the grant giving body is awarding you. So it's a kind of overestimating your activity plan with the budget. And the second thing is not to putting the country context. You are applying from Bangladesh and you are not considering the need of your country. You have not considered the scope review, or you have not consulted with the stakeholder or a person who know in this expert in this area, what did you need in your country right now? So put this scenario in your proposal and relate it to the funding agencies, those who will give you this award. So I mean, putting together, that's actually increase the chances of getting awarded. So this one of the frequent mistake I used to do, and some of our young colleagues also do that. I mean, overestimating the activity with the lower budget, and sometimes the budget is not in line to the activity plan. Sometimes it's over budgeted, sometimes it's lower budgeted. Both ways harmful.
All right, thanks a lot, Nurul. Okay, so let's sum up 3 or 4 things we just heard. Follow the instructions. Get to know the funder if possible. That's one reason I invited you all here. Okay, I see you all are here. I've seen your names. I see emails in our database. You're active. You know, some of you I have known for years. So when I see a grant proposal, you know, even if it's subconsciously, I know this person, I've seen them, they've been involved for a long time versus someone I've never heard of. You know who's going to get a little higher likelihood of winning the grant. Nurul had a very good point. Your budget, make it realistic. Don't put in you're going to do 10 things and you need $100. Okay, be realistic. The grantors know that, you know, certain things cost money. You've got your budget. In your budget, you're justifying your budget. It's not just, I need $100 for this and $200 for that. Like, say why you need it. Why, if it's not clear that it should cost that much, then just be clear. So make a realistic budget.
So in the latter part of grants application, and I was mentoring some of the young colleagues in Bangladesh as well. So what I asked them to follow, and I also followed it before thinking in my mind that I will apply for these grants. What I usually do, I mean, I try to identify the need or identify the problem. What's the problem? So once we identify the problem or the need, then I go for a scope review and talking with the stakeholders or the subject matter expert. So this is the problem. And then try to find the solve. What would be the, actual and sustainable and feasible solution for this problem? And how would be the need to get this solution? Then once you check out or the plan, your solution, and then identify your objectives. I mean, you might have some 10 or 12 objectives, and through one single grant, you will not be able to finish all your objectives. So put them 1 or 2 objectives you will achieve through these small grants, and explore more in the latter. And after doing this, one important point I learned that probably the fund giving body is looking for is the outcome or the impact. After investing this amount of money, what would be your impact? So try to think about the impact, what you will achieve, and how the amphibian population, how they will be benefited, and what would be the benefit for your fund giving body as well. And as I said before, then considering all these circumstances, plan accordingly and prepare a realistic budget. And don't make a mistake in the calculation, mathematical calculation. So last year, I and Kerry was reviewing some of the proposal last 3 years for Save the Frogs J grants. Some of them are mathematically incorrect, and some of them were not well explained. Just this says that we will spend $200 in developing the outreach materials. Is it realistic that you will spend this $200 in developing outreach material? Okay, it's realistic. How are the outreach materials? Are you going to print it, or it will be a soft copy? Please give us some clue, not to guess, rather than you will explain us. Your proposal should be self-explanatory.
Thanks. Yeah, on the budget, no mathematical mistakes. How are you going to make a mathematical mistake? If you're writing your budget up in Microsoft Word and you've got one line of this and one line of that and one line of that, and then you have to add it up in your head or with the calculator, and then a week later, oh no, you want to change that, but you forget to change this and you forget to recalculate, bad news. Spreadsheets, that's when you do use a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are for mathematical calculations. Okay? I should probably open up one of my spreadsheets. I had considered, should I force everybody to use my spreadsheet for budget? And Nurul and I decided, no, let's see what people submit, and then in the future, maybe. But I want to see, like, if you need to buy 10 stacks of paper or whatever, okay? Stack of paper, one column. Quantity, 10, another column. Cost per unit, $2, another column. Total amount, that column times that column. Okay, that cell times that cell equals 20. Okay, then you've got 10 rows of different things. Summation value at the bottom, automatically summing up all those things so that you don't have to do the math. Let the spreadsheet do the math. If you don't know how to work a spreadsheet to do what I just said, then find someone who does. There's almost certainly somebody you know who has basic spreadsheet knowledge. All right, so for that, Excel, if you want to do it, I'm sure Airtable can do it too, but spreadsheets are meant, they're created to do mathematical calculations like that. Do not do stuff in your head unless it's very, very simple. All right. Now, let's get to the question. First off, if you have questions, go ahead and send them in. Where do you find grants? Where do you find grant opportunities? I believe that a lot of libraries have access to the Foundation Center online, Foundation Center, Foundation Directory online, I believe it's called, put out by the Foundation Center, who may have changed their name recently when they joined up with GuideStar, and now they have a brand new name, Candid. I think that's what they're called now, but I'm sure you can just do a search Foundation Directory, Foundation Center online. They have a huge grants database, which costs money. But I think that if you're a member of your local library, and if you're not, you should become a member of your local library. That library probably has access to it. So you can just call up your local library and ask them, or just ask them. You don't even have to specify which grants directory you're looking for. You just say, I'm looking for grants. What resources do you have? And they probably know that. So that's probably where I'd start. Otherwise, do a search online for grants with, whatever keyword: amphibian conservation grants, environmental grants, wetland restoration grants, environmental education grants, and that'll probably get you going. Then there's grantwatch.com. That's a site that's not free, but if you are a 501c3 public charity, such as I believe the Frog House, Margot, may be, I'm not sure of your current status. Everyone who's a 501c3 public charity should become a TechSoup member. TechSoup, type that in there. If you're not, then you should become one. And I know that TechSoup offers a significant discount to GrantWatch, which is just another database. You would type in something like California, environmental education, family foundations. You give it you filter it down to whatever you're searching for, and they're going to respond with, here's 7 family foundations that give environmental education funding in California. Click on it. Hi, here's the name, here's their website, here's the amounts, here's the dates. So if you want to be raising a lot of money from grants, then it's probably worth it to pay. I can't remember. Say the Frogs had it for a year or two, $100 a year. If you're going to be putting it to use, then it's worth it. But I'd start out with that library, Foundation Center, and just some searches online. Mike Or, let's also talk grants.gov. Maybe you can make a mention of that because I'm sure you're more familiar with it than I am for government awards.
No, actually, I did not use that at all.
Okay. Yeah. So there's
Sorry.
there's grants.gov, and I put in it, maybe it's easier now. I got set up with it 10 years ago. It was a massive ordeal, as many government things can be. Hopefully it's easier now. And I don't even know if I've ever, maybe I used it one time to apply for a grant, but there are tons of grants coming from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Environmental Protection Agency, your state Department of Fish and Game or Fish and Wildlife probably gives out grants. Your state EPA probably gives out grants, and even your local city council. I know that in Santa Cruz, the Santa Cruz Department of Fish and Game or Fish and Wildlife, whatever they're called, they'd have usually each year they'd give out grants, maybe $500, $1,000. And on this topic of grant amounts and grant applications and potential bureaucracy, if I'm going to fill out, some organizations want a lot of info. If you're applying for a federal grant, they probably want a lot of info about your organization, about what you're going to do, and it can take a lot of time. It can take days or more to fill out the application. I don't want to fill out those applications unless they're potentially going to give out a lot of money. So think about that. If it's a simple application, for $500, that's fine. But if it's going to take me days to fill out, I want it to be for $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 because I'm putting days of my time into that. So hopefully you can see the application process without, just before you even get started. Take a quick look at that and make a decision. Is it worth your time to apply for that grant? Now, if it's precisely, if they're giving out money for precisely what you do, then, probably going to be worth it. Okay, so the question is, when I got started, did I rely on outside grants? Do you still? Okay, so let's take it back to the very start. 2004, we'll say, my first year of doing my PhD research in Australia. I was an unfunded PhD candidate. I did not have a scholarship covering my tuition. I did not have a stipend or salary or research money. And that meant that I had to apply for grants, whereas most of my, what would you say, cohort, other PhD candidates, they were not busy applying for grants. They had their international postgraduate research scholarship or their whatever scholarship, and life was easy. They didn't have to apply for grants. I did. I learned something from that experience, and I won a couple big grants right away from Epley Foundation for Research and from National Geographic Committee for Research and Exploration. So that gave me the confidence and a bit of knowledge with respect to the grant world, and I thought it would be easy to win a lot of more grants. It wasn't always, but I definitely won, as we heard about from Nurul. If you keep applying, you're going to win some of them. And the more that you have on your resume, the more it helps because people like to see that. Oh, you've won grants before. Okay. Going forward, though, Save the Frogs. I don't apply for many grants anymore. I certainly have in the past, and we've won some grants. And also something we never mention, corporate grants, corporate donations. Save the Frogs won money from Lush Cosmetics. Let's see, there's one other of those big cosmetics company. Like some of those cosmetics companies, especially the ones that don't test on animals, they like animals, so they give out money for wildlife. We've won money from Patagonia, from Nature's Path, EnviroKid cereal, and let's see, several other companies. So think of the companies that that care about the environment. hiking companies, outdoor companies, REI, Patagonia, North Face, organic food companies, Annie's Homegrown Organic Foods, Ben and Jerry's. A lot of these companies that make it part of their brand to be good on the environment, they have grants programs. So you should definitely check those out too. And yeah, so back to that. I prefer not to write grant applications, though I certainly have, but I'm able to make that choice these days because I've spent hundreds or thousands of hours in developing other monetary sources, such as an awesome website that brings people to it, that provides a sense of trust, that has a good donation page, that has recurring donations. We've got supporters who've been helping out for over a decade. I know how to send out email blasts to, we have a big mailing list. So if I need money, I have other ways to get that money. That doesn't mean I won't apply for grants again. And I keep a list of potential grantors and the people who've given us money in the past. And I'll say that once you do get money from a grantor, you should be applying every single year from them if they have that program still going. And if you're still doing projects that fit in with what they fund, you've got a lot higher chance of getting a grant from someone who's already given you a grant. So make sure you keep your list of all the places you've applied, and unless you got a serious rejection from them, like this has nothing to do with us. If they say, hey, can't do it this year, please apply again in the future, then definitely apply again in the future. And if you want a grant, definitely apply. So I'll say, yeah, there's lots of ways to raise money. Grants are just one way to raise money. Margot asks, how long did it take Save the Frogs to get in the black, out of debt, we'll say, because every company probably starts out, or we'll say 99% of for-profit and non-profit businesses start out by going straight into debt, because you got to spend money to get stuff going probably before you even make your first sale. Not always, but usually. So how long did it take? First off, that was 2008, and we have a lot more abilities to, the world's a different place now, so I'm not sure things would be the same or should be the same for anyone. I can't remember precisely. I know that I did not get a salary at all for 18 months, so I worked the first 18 months without getting any salary, and I know that most people aren't willing or able to do that, and that's why most nonprofits or even for-profits don't survive in the long run. So you do, have to be prepared for that. But organizationally, I don't remember, probably about that same time. If I started taking a salary, then Save the Frogs probably was out of debt at the same time. But we definitely, most nonprofits are going to have some financial trouble along the way, and it may come and go as things, you think you can you get some big donations coming in, you think you can afford a lot more stuff, you start spending on, who knows what, things change. So always be working on reducing your expenses. That's what I can say. Spend if you think you need to spend. Think of all the projects you can think of, what are the ones that you can get done that don't cost a lot of money? There are some projects that cost a lot of money and some projects don't cost a lot of money, and go with those if you think they're important. There's plenty of things I can do that they don't cost much of anything other than my time to do them, versus there are certain things that are going to cost a lot of money. So until you have a funder, that's the kind of stuff you should apply for the grants for. The projects that you can't fund it on your own, maybe that's the ones that you apply for the grant money for. The things you can get done on a little bit of money, keep doing those things. All right, Margo, there were no others. Did others get a salary in the first 18 months? No, nobody. I think my first time I hired a staff member would have been after Save the Frogs moved to Santa Cruz. Maybe that was 2 years in. I had one part-time assistant, and that was probably for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. I can't remember. And then I probably hired my first other employee maybe a year after that. So, yeah, but that's me. Every organization's going to be different. And if I did something, these days things are different. But yeah, it takes a long time. Like, did you or did I have nonprofit experience? Did we ever work for nonprofits? Were we immersed in the world of nonprofits before starting our own nonprofit? No. So, you got to learn from scratch. But I'll say the key is keep your expenses down. Make use of volunteers. Margo, you've got some volunteers. I know Emily's on here right now, and I'm sure you have other volunteers. So make use of your volunteers. Keep asking. Yeah, so what's the other thing? My number one rule of fundraising is if you don't ask, you don't get. So you got to ask. Someone may just walk up to you and hand you some money, or just remember, they may wake up one day and remember that you exist and write you and say, how can I send you money? But chances are you got to ask. So that's why I do less asking these days than I used to, but I still have passive asks. Like at the bottom of our email newsletter, there's a donate now button there. At the top of our website, there's a donate now button. It's not an in your face, hey, we need money, can you donate? We're trying to raise this much by this date. We got 30 people so far. But if you need to raise some money, you got to ask. Okay, Emily, on staff. Okay, well, here's the good thing about having someone on staff is they're going to show up every day, or when it 5 days a week or whatever, and get the job done. Whereas a volunteer is kind of here and there kind of thing. So I say, yeah, I don't know what Emily's working on, but I'd say, she's here learning about grants, so maybe Emily can write up a grant proposal. I've been kind of digressing into various things. Keep the questions coming in here. I'll say, work on finishing this out in a few minutes. Let's see what I have here. Okay, this is good. From Sofia in Argentina. If the actual project is bigger, but the grant will only cover part of it, is it better to break it down and specify what part it will be covering, or just present it as if it is the whole project? This will probably come down to what the grantor asks, because they may say, is this part of a bigger project? Do you have other funding? I'm not asking that, and I didn't even think about it until today when I was looking at it, and I decided just leave it as is. Like, if you're part of a $5,000 project and you're only asking for $500 from us, I personally would rather you just think of what costs $500 in that project and ask for that from us. You can mention if you have funding from another group and it's covering some other portion, go ahead and mention it. But for me, I just, as a reviewer, just keep it simple. You're asking for $500. This is what the $500 is for. But if you're applying for a federal grant and they require a match of 50% from some other group or from other people, then they're going to want to know who else is giving money, what did they cover, what do you still need from us, and they're going to ask for all those details. So I think it's just going to come down to what the application is asking for. So to sum it up, from Save the Frogs, if the project is bigger, you can mention that, but when you're asking us for money, just ask us for the thing that you need the funds for. All right, and I thank Nurul for his longtime support, who writes in he's been giving support for a decade without payment. So, yeah, make use of volunteers. It's good to have staff as well if you can. And, if they're qualified and they're getting stuff done, it's good to have staff. But even your staff can make use of volunteers. Everyone should say, how can I get more done? Who out there has said that they can help? What can they help with? And how can I, without dedicating all of your time to them, how can you get them going on some project and helping out? Because for any nonprofit organization, if you do good work, there's people who are going to like what you do and they're going to want to be involved. And some people may not even want to get paid. They may have some high paying job and they may hate that job, and they may just want to help out and don't have any desire for anything in return. All right, so I'll say a final chance for questions. If anyone wants to be unmuted to say something, then go ahead and let me know. And this is being recorded. I do plan to get this up. I'll put this video into Save the Frogs Academy. I'm not sure if I yet have a course called Fundraising, but that's where I'm going to put it if it's not yet there. I thank everyone for being here, Nurul and Mike especially for providing some insight, and I wish all of you the best of luck in your environmental efforts and your grant applications. I say go ahead and do it. It's a good experience. It'll help you develop your project, and if you apply for enough grants, then one day someone's going to say yes, and you'll be that much more happy. All right, when's the next office hours is the question, and we did just announce a new office hours. You know, office hours, you can always go to our website. In the footer, there's a big footer, and it's got a countdown timer that says when it is. So the next office hours is going to be February 16th, 2021, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Time, and I hope to see you there. All right, thanks, Jeannie, who says, thank you for the very clear guide on strategy and expectations and tips. Okay, let's conclude there. I am Save the Frogs founder, Dr. Kerry Kriger. Good luck with your environmental fundraising. Bye.